to Cody Talks NFL, presented by Blitzalytics.com. And here's your host, Cody Manning.
And welcome into the next edition of Cody Talks NFL. Hope you guys had a great week. It's been a week since you guys have heard from me. I hope you guys enjoyed one of the probably best wild card weekends in my recent memory, as far as all four games coming down to a one-score game, being an awesome turnout. But yeah, it's going to be a quick episode. Like I've told you guys throughout this playoffs leading up to the Super Bowl, it's more going to be updating and talking about any relevant news. I'm not really talking about all 32 teams, because basically you'd be sitting here and going through 24 teams saying, I have no news for you, no news for you, no news for you. So this week, I'm just talking about the three coaching hirings that happened. I'm going to preview the divisional round games that are going to happen this weekend, and I'm going to get right on out of here for you guys so you can enjoy your weekend and enjoy these games that are coming up starting tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and get started with the first hiring this week. Happened not too long after Monday started, but Cowboys did officially hire Mike McCarthy as their head coach. As far as this move, at first I was kind of hesitant on the Mike McCarthy coming back as a head coach. I didn't like how he ended his tenure as a Green Bay Packer. You know, there was a story that came out this fall that painted him in a bad light, where he kind of got comfortable. It seemed like he wasn't changing his play calling. But since then, if you guys look it up, if you go online, you just Google Mike McCarthy interview NFL Network. He sat down with Tom Pelissero, and he talked about how he reinvented himself. He got some coaches together. They sat in basically, a dark room and watched film on everything from his coaching from back in the 80s, everything that he can improve on, keeping up with trends, watching all these mobile quarterbacks, including Dak Prescott was one of those guys. And then also, too, he was visiting PFF weekly, from what I understood, and trying to get the understanding of analytics. He was actually on I was seeing some quotes come out from this morning. He was on our local radio show in Dallas. He was talking about how he used to be that type of coach that talked about how statistics are for losers. He used to be that guy, but now he understands how analytics can help him make quicker decisions on game days. So I'm actually became a fan of this hire, because I like to see maybe a coach like him, a guy that's been a winning coach, a guy that's won a Super Bowl, get a second chance. But I do want to see what he does with the second chance, because you could say all the right things, but when that clock hits on week one, let's see if everything he said that he's done, he can apply it on game day. So I'm not 100% convinced he's done it, but he's saying all the right things. It sounds like he's changing his approach to how he's coaching. And if that's true, in my opinion, he's a way better coach than Jason Garrett. I mean, he led the Packers to how many playoff runs? He just, didn't get it done for most of the time, besides that one Super Bowl. One thing I do like, though, he's putting together a veteran coaching staff around him, too. Mike Nolan as his defensive coordinator. He's bringing in John Fossil as a special teams coach, who's one of the more highly regarded special teams coaches in the league. Jim Tomasula as his defensive line coach, and Joe Philbin as his offensive line coach. All those guys outside John Fossil, they all have head coaching experience. And then Kellen Moore is expected to be back as his OC. There had been no official announcement, but that's the expectation. It was either Kellen Moore would stay there, or it sounds like he had opportunity to be the offensive coordinator at University of Washington. Sounds like he's going to stay there. So Dak will be with a familiar offensive coordinator. Now, this is assuming, Dak gets a new deal or is brought back on the franchise tag. But I think I like this hire. We'll see if it leads to on-field production, but as of right now, I do like this hiring by Cowboys. They didn't go for the splash hire. They went for a guy that's a veteran and knows the league pretty well. Next guy that got hired this week, which is a surprise to me, because I thought he was going to land in New York, but the Panthers did hire Matt Rule. Not only they landed him, but this is probably why they offered him everything. They offered him a 7-year deal. It's worth up to $60 million, and he can earn up to $70 million in incentives. There was a report that came out that owners are probably going to be furious with him, because he gave a new head coach all that type of money. It ups the ante for head coaches when they discuss their deals. But I really like this hiring. If you guys have been listening to me talking about the hirings over my last few episodes, I talked about how I'm a personal fan of Matt Rule. Any interview that I've heard him do, I've liked what he says. He talks about how he wants to build a culture. From his press conference this week, it sounds like he's the guy to lead Carolina in the right direction. And I also like that the fact that he did get a 7-year deal, because that shows that David Tepper, the owner, understands like things in Carolina. It's not there. There probably isn't going to be a quick turnaround. Like there's no expectation for him to get to the playoffs probably in the first year or two. And I mean, that's how it's kind of been when he was at Temple and when he was at Baylor. That first year, was a losing record. Second year improved, and then the third year the team was competing and either won their conference or had, like Baylor this year, had a chance to win the Big 12 and potentially sneak in as that 4 seed in the playoffs. So I like Matt Rule. I think this is a great hire. They're going to put all the money behind him for the sports science stuff that he wants to get going, to build the culture that he wants to do, to build the program. They're giving him enough time to do so too with that deal. So I like this hire. Like I said, I don't think you're going to see like Matt Rule lead them to a winning record, even next year or possibly even the following year after that. Maybe if he gets, if Cam Newton's back and he's Cam Newton, or maybe if they hit on a quarterback in the draft, maybe you can see instant success. But give it a couple of years, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Panthers got a strong hold of the NFC South, especially in a couple of years when the Saints will be without Drew Brees. And you're talking about the Matt Ryan will be older by then, and then you're also talking about we don't even know what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be doing by then. Even Bruce Arians will still be the head coach of the Tampa Bay. So I definitely would not be surprised if the Panthers are running this division in about 3 years. And then the last hiring is, and this one is, I really honestly, I can't sit here and lie to you guys and say I knew much about this guy, but the Giants did hire Joe Judge. He was a special teams coach in New England. I know people want to poke at that he was a wide receiver coach, and the wide receivers didn't do much this year, but keep in mind, he was only the wide receiver coach for like the last 8 years. He just had like another title underneath that. But more importantly, everybody knows Bill Belichick loves special teams. He loves coaching that unit. And the fact that Bill Belichick gave him the unit to coach, and if anybody remembers, we saw a lot of block punts this year. The special teams excelled in there. Matthew Slater, the probably arguably one of the best, if not the best, special teamer to ever play in the NFL. He talked about how great of a coach Joe Judge is. Joe Judge also coached underneath Nick Saban. So you're talking about he's worked underneath arguably 2 of the best coaches ever in football as a whole history. So you got to like that. He's going to bring a hard-nosed type of attitude to New York. He was brought in more of his leadership, so maybe he can help Daniel Jones improve as a leader, and other people in that locker room. This is one I'm kind of still iffy on because I don't know much about Joe Judge. I haven't really heard much interviews from him. But it's out-of-box thinking. Keep in mind, like John Harbaugh, he was a special teams coach underneath Andy Reid. A lot of people question that hire too. That's worked out just fine for the Baltimore Ravens. And I guess my last little point on Joe Judge is let's just see how this plays out. I mean, it's going to be key on who he hires as his offensive coordinator because, he's not necessarily known for his offensive skills, right? He's a special teams coach. He kind of somewhat coached the wide receivers. So who he hires as his offensive coordinator to help develop Daniel Jones and that offense with players like, Saquon Barkley, Evan Ingram, Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, and Darius Slayton, young kid. His name slipped my mind for a second. But yeah, let's just see who he brings as the offensive coordinator, obviously as a defensive coordinator too. But I am more curious on who will be the offensive coordinator in New York. I don't know. He got a 5-year deal, so I don't know if he's got a short leash. I don't know if he's expected to win next year, but it is New York. And, that's why Matt Rule probably went to Carolina, is because Carolina is going to give him that time to develop his program, unlike in New York, where they're probably going to want Matt Rule to come in and do a quick turnaround. We'll see. I think it's kind of funny now that I'm about to say it, but the jury's out for the Judge on this one, guys. I guess I'm going to have to see how it plays out on game days. I really don't have an opinion because I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to be those type of guys that kind of came out and be like, oh, you're hiring a special teams no-namer. Like, obviously he got hired for a reason. And, I mean, when you worked underneath a guy like Belichick and Saban for so long, you've got to pick up something from them. And we'll see if that translates into success in New York. Other than that, though, I'm going to go ahead and get into these divisional round games for the weekend. I'm going to start with these Saturday games that are starting tomorrow. The first game will be Minnesota is traveling to San Francisco. Vikings versus the 49ers will be the first game of the weekend. As far as the injury reports for this, the Vikings, Mackenzie Alexander has already been ruled out with his knee injury. Jaron Kearse is doubtful with a toe and knee injury. Adam Thielen got a cut on his ankle this week, where I guess he kind of had a little. It was a kind of a major cut, or I don't know what you want to say. That's what I sound like to me. He's questionable, but he's expected to play. I joked with some Vikings fans. I was like, maybe he might have the bloody sock game, and it's known forever if his cut opens up during the game. And then for the 49ers, D Ford, he's questionable with a quadricep and hamstring injury, and Tavius Street is questionable with a knee injury. And as far as both teams' offense and defensive units, for the Vikings, they are 8th in scoring. They average 25.4 points per game. They have the 6th best rushing attack. They average around 133.3 yards per game. And they have the 23rd best passing attack. They average 220.2 yards per game. And then their defense, they're 6th in holding their opponents to scoring only 18.9 points per game. They have the 13th ranked rushing defense, allowing 108 yards per game, and they have the 15th ranked passing defense, allowing 233.6 yards per game. Now, looking at the 49ers, they have the 2nd best scoring offense in the league. They average 29.9 points per game. They have the 2nd best rushing attack, getting 144.1 yards per game, and they have the 13th ranked passing attack, getting 237 yards per game. Now, looking at their defense, they have the 8th best defense and allowing opponents only scoring 19.4 points per game. They have the 17th ranked rushing defense, allowing 112.6 points per game. So in the bottom half, that's not really a good thing you want to have going against a guy like Dalvin Cook coming off a strong game against the Saints. But they do have the number 1 ranked pass defense. They only allow 169.2 yards per game. So if you look at it from a Minnesota aspect, their best bet is to try to attack that weaker rushing defense of San Francisco, get Dalvin Cook going early like they did last week against the Saints, get Alexander Madison going, and then that will lead to play action plays, and that's how you can attack the San Francisco defense, who is honestly the last few weeks, from my memory, they were kind of giving up some plays in the passing game. So seeing if they can get Stephon Diggs going, see if they can get an Adam Thielen going. That's the way they're going to want to attack them. And then, obviously, I think the best thing that the Vikings can do for their defense is to just concentrate on bottling up that run game the best they can do to their abilities and forcing Jimmy G to beat them. Jimmy G has stepped up in games. I had said that in past episodes, but this is playoff football. It's his first playoff game under the big lights, and let's see what he can do, because most of the time quarterbacks struggle in their first playoff game. And if I'm Zimmer, I want to make Jimmy G to force him to break him. And one thing to keep in mind too, with the Vikings, is they have Gary Kubiak on their staff. Well, Gary Kubiak worked underneath. He was a backup quarterback underneath Mike Shanahan. He grew up in Mike Shanahan's offense. He runs Mike Shanahan's offense. Well, Kyle Shanahan obviously has taken his dad's offense. So if there's anybody that probably knows Kyle Shanahan's offense the best in this league, it's probably Gary Kubiak. So I would not be surprised if Mike Zimmer has taken Gary Kubiak into the defensive meetings to help try to slow down this run game. That's something that, I mean, there are some people that have brought that up, but that's something to consider if you have not thought about that as far as how this game could go. And then as far as the San Francisco aspect, I mean, they have a legit pass defense, but their best bet, though, is make sure same thing kind of like Minnesota. They need to bottle up that Minnesota rushing attack. Kirk Cousins did show up last week big time, but the Vikings typically struggle on the road in outdoors conditions. I know it's San Francisco, so it's not like you're expecting, snow or anything or a bad weather. Maybe it might rain. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at the weather report, but I mean, your best bet though at the end of the day is to bottle up the run game and force Kirk Cousins to beat you. Get guys like Nick Bosa going. Ideally D Ford will play. Get him going. Get the pass rush going. And getting pressure on Kirk Cousins and forcing him into those bad Cousins mistakes we can see sometimes when he gets early pressure on him. It's probably their best bet on that. Now, as far as the Vikings defense are really good at holding opponents from scoring, right? So they're about in the middle of the average pack against the rush, against the defense. So, I mean, I think, obviously, like I said, Minnesota's best bet is to stop the run. So I think it's a good mixture of run and pass. Kyle Shanahan to show his genius, show how he can mix things up, give Jimmy G a chance to shine in this game. But the biggest key will be scoring those points, right? Getting points early. That's what I think kind of bit New Orleans in the butt last week against Minnesota is they couldn't score. Like, remember Adam Thielen fumbled the ball in the first play? The Saints could have marched down, went up 7-0 early in the game, but they settled for a field goal. And to me, that was a win for Minnesota. So if that's something like that happens for San Francisco, they're going to need to produce points because Minnesota has a really good defense. They can allow some yards, but they really clamp down when it comes to the red zone. So I think this is kind of like a strength on strength type of matchup in this game. It's going to be very interesting to see. I think this is going to come down to coaching. I really do. Who's going to outshine? Is it going to be the young buck and Kyle Shanahan, or is it going to be the old defensive head and Mike Zimmer? This one's hard for me to pick. If you would have told me in the playoffs the Vikings squeezed by the Saints, I probably would have been like, you know what, they're probably going to drop that game against the Niners. But I was really impressed with how Kirk Cousins played. Dalvin Cook like Dalvin Cook. And this is looking like that Vikings team from the middle of the season that we all talked about. If they could get hot, they can go on a playoff run to the Super Bowl. Honestly, I think whoever wins this game is going to win the NFC, no matter if they place the Seahawks or the Packers next week. I don't think it matters. I think whoever wins this game, it's going to be the 49ers or Vikings in the Super Bowl. I don't know. I got this weird feeling the Vikings are going to be one of those weird 6 seeds that make it to the Super Bowl. I'm going to pick the Vikings in the upset. I am. I think they're going to ride that momentum from last week, and they're going to find a way to win a very close game. I do think it's going to come down to whoever has the ball last to kick a field goal to win. I think the Vikings win like a 27-24 type win. I'm taking the Vikings in the upset this week. And then I'm going to go ahead and move into that second Saturday game. Tennessee is traveling to Baltimore to face the Ravens. As far as the injury report for this game on the Titans front, Jayon Brown, he's out with a shoulder injury. Adam Humphries is out with an ankle injury. And Cody Hollister is questionable with an ankle injury. And then on the Ravens front, Mark Ingram is questionable with a calf injury, and Mark Andrews is questionable with ankle injury, but both guys are expected to play. Maybe Ingram is kind of limited. We'll see if he has limited reps or he's going to be ready to go. As far as looking at the team's offense and defense, on the Titans front, their offense is 10th in scoring. They get 25.1 points per game. They have the third best rushing attack. They get 138.9 yards per game. They have the 21st passing rank offense, getting 223.9 yards per game. And then as far as Tennessee's defense, they rank 12th in holding opponents scoring to 20.7 points per game. They have the 12th best rushing defense. They allow 104.5 yards per game. And then they have the 24th ranked passing defense. They allow 255 yards per game. Now, looking at the Baltimore offense, they have the number one scoring offense. They get 33.2 points per game. They have the number one rushing attack, getting 206 yards per game. And they have the 27th ranked passing attack. They get 201.6 yards per game, but I kind of think that's kind of because they just been outrunning people all year, and then they always have been having a big lead where they don't really need a pass in the end. At the end of the day, Lamar Jackson led the league in passing touchdowns, so I kind of feel like their 27th passing attack is kind of a skewed stat in my opinion. But their defense is kind of outstanding. I didn't realize that they ranked in the top 7 in all categories. They rank 3rd in opponent scoring. They hold opponents to only scoring 17.6 points per game. They have the 4th best rushing defense, only allowing 93.4 yards per game. And they have the 6th best passing defense, only allowing 207.2 yards per game. Now, as far as like a Tennessee attack on them, obviously it's bottling up the run, right? They have the number one rushing attack in the league. It's going to be difficult, but their best bet is just to sell out, right? Bottle up Lamar. I would put like 2 guys. Like I want both of you looking at Lamar. Like one guy, I want you to attack Lamar on replays. The other guy, I want you to read what he's doing. If he's handing off to Mark Ingram, you go to Mark Ingram. If he's keeping the ball, I want you to do not let Lamar beat you on the legs. I can handle if Mark Ingram gets his, some good yards. Just don't let Lamar pop off, because when Lamar pops off, that's when that offense is going to just go off and score all those points like they did this year. Like, contain Lamar. Like, I know it's hard. He's been putting people on ice skates, but one person can't do it, right? Just like you would double team the best team's wide receiver, just double team the team's best player, Lamar Jackson. That's Tennessee's best bet. Have Rashaan Evans chasing him all day long. Lamar's improved as a passer. I've admitted this, right? But the receivers, Marquise Brown, he's had some good games, but they don't have that legit number one guy, right? Mark Andrews has been great too. Let me say that. But dare them to beat you by the pass. I mean, that's going to be your best bet, is to bottle up the run and dare you to beat you with the pass. That's all I could say. As far as the offensive attack, I guess you just got to get Derrick Henry going. I was wrong last week. Well, New England didn't do what I thought New England would do, which is bottle up Derrick Henry and force Ryan Tannehill to beat you, right? But as far as Tennessee's offense attack, I mean, like I just talked about, Baltimore's got a pretty balanced defense, right? They're not weak in one area compared to the other. So I guess Tennessee just needs to kind of go with a balanced attack. Try to get Derrick Henry going early, and then when you get Derrick Henry going early, you can feed him off him, get play action game going, get the screen going. Let's get A.J. Brown going. He only had 1 catch last week, so get him fed pretty early, get him feeling hot. I think it's going to be a balanced attack approach for Tennessee if they want to stay within this game. Now, as far as Baltimore, how I think they might attack the Tennessee as far as their defense, same thing like I said about New England. Stop Derrick Henry. Bottle him up. I know Earl Thomas came out this week and said, we're not afraid to tackle Derrick Henry like the New England Patriots. That was kind of a good shot, I thought. But yeah, bottle him up, force Tannehill to beat you. Pretty simple in my opinion. I know Tannehill's had a great year. At the end of the day, he only had to throw for 72 yards last week to beat the Patriots. So bottle him up, force Tannehill to beat you. You got the thing with Baltimore, though, they have those corners that can play one-on-one, like a Marcus Peters. If you can get a pick six off Marcus Peters, they got, Humphrey and Jimmy Smith. Like, all those guys can play one-on-one with a A.J. Brown, with a Corey Davis. It's not like those guys are – A.J. Brown eventually will be a legit number one. He's still a rookie. He's still growing through some things. So force them to beat you through the pass. And then as far as their offense attack, Tennessee's defense, they're 12th in rushing, 24th in passing defense. Like I said, they're probably going to want to, in my opinion, they're probably going to want to sell out to stop the run. So you know what I would do if I was Baltimore? Come out slinging. Play action, RPO, dump off to Mark Andrews, dump off to Hayden Hurst. You know what? First play, I might take a play action and just take a deep shot to Marquise Brown to let them know, yeah, we know you guys want to stop our run, but we're going to go ahead and take a deep shot and try to let you know we're not afraid to pass the ball. And if they can get that passing game going early and really get Tennessee's defense on their toes, and then they start hitting them with the play action runs with Lamar, with Ingram, maybe you'll see some Justice Hill, and I forget the other kid's name that's behind him that was there last year. My apologies, but you get them going, and then I think if that ends up happening, they can run them out the doors. Now, as far as how this game could go, I don't want to pick hard against Tennessee, but man, with Baltimore having a week off, Baltimore having the number one offense as far as scoring, a really legit defense, they're balanced on all ends of their defense. I really do think Baltimore is going to handle their business. I do think Tennessee, because it's supposed to be like a nasty weather condition from what I understood for the game. So it kind of feeds into both teams' running games. But I don't know. I think Baltimore is going to handle their business and make it to the AFC Championship game. I think it might be closer than what I don't know. It's probably going to end up closer than what I think. For some reason, I do think that Baltimore is going to walk away in this game at some point. But I think it's going to be like one of those games where it's close through the end and then Baltimore pulls away in the fourth quarter, maybe beating off like a pick six or something like that. But I do think Baltimore wins. I'll give them a touchdown win, like a 28-21 type win. But I wouldn't be surprised if they end up winning by like 10 points as well too. So those are the Saturday games. I'm gonna go ahead and talk about the Sunday divisional games. We have Houston traveling to Kansas City to face the Chiefs. Now, as far as injuries, now we don't have the official injury report since these teams play on Sunday. Texans have a long list of guys that were limited in reps. Obviously, by the time you're listening to this, the final injury report should be out. But to go ahead and go through the guys that have been limited for Houston this week, J.J. Watt with his shoulder injury. Obviously, we expect him to play, especially with how he played. I was very surprised he was that effective coming off a pec injury. Only J.J. Watt can do that. Now, Will Fuller, he's been limited with his groin injury. I know it sounded like he is trending to getting a return back. Obviously, if he returns, that helps their chances, but again, it's Will Fuller. He could get hurt on the first play. Kenny Stills has been limited with a knee. Jonathan Joseph with a hamstring. Jacob Martin with an illness. Jalil Adai with a knee. Jordan Akins with a hamstring. Keon Crossan with a hamstring. And A.J. Moore with a hip. All those guys have been limited this week for Houston. On the Chiefs front, Morris Claiborne has not practiced with a shoulder. Travis Kelce has been limited with a knee injury. And Chris Jones has been limited with a calf injury. Now, looking at the Houston offense and defense really quick, Houston's offense ranks 14th in scoring. They get 23.6 points per game. They have the 9th best rushing attack, getting 125.6 yards per game. The 15th ranked passing attack, getting 236.4 yards per game. Now, as far as their defense ranks 19th in holding opponents to scoring. They allow 24.1 points per game. They have the 25th best rushing attack, 25th ranked rushing attack, allowing 121.1 yards per game. And they have the 29th ranked passing defense, allowing 267.2 yards per game. Now, looking at the Kansas City offense and defense, they have the 4th best scoring offense. They get 28.2 points per game. They have the 23rd rushing attack, getting only 98.1 yards per game. And they have the 5th best passing attack. They get 281.1 yards per game. Now, looking at the Kansas City defense, they have the 7th ranked defense in opponent scoring. They only allow 19.2 points per game. They do rank in the bottom part of the rush defense. They have the 26th ranked rush defense. They allowed 128.2 yards per game, but they do have the 8th best pass defense. They only allow 221.4 yards per game. Now, this game is pretty interesting. Houston did beat Kansas City in Kansas City earlier this year, but that was a long time ago, and Kansas City's defense has been much improved since then. As far as like Houston's plan of attack, looking at their offense, obviously the best thing it's going to be hard to beat Patrick Mahomes, right? And Andy Reid. I mean, they are going to have to force turnovers. That's simple as that. Like, I can't even tell you, like, oh, they're going to have to get pressure on Mahomes. I'm not going into that because Mahomes he's got scrambling ability. We've seen him do his crossbody throws, his no-look throws, deep shots to Tyreek Hill. That you can slow it down, but you can't stop it, right? So their best bet is they're going to have to take chances. They're going to have to take chances on the interceptions. They're going to have to try to jump routes. They're going to have to get pressure as far as pressure and like strip sack fumbles, right? They're going to have to force turnovers. They're going to have to win a turnover battle. That is the only way they're going to be able to beat the Kansas City offenses. They're going to have to force turnovers while having their offense not turn the ball over and win the turnover battle. That's the only way I can see them slowing down the offense. Outside, what they can do, though, is looking at Kansas City's defense. Kansas City's defense has a 26th ranked rushing defense. They're going to Carlos Hyde and Duke Johnson, get them going early as best as you can. Try to get that run game going. Control the clock. Keep Patrick Mahomes on the sideline. So if you can run the ball and control the clock, and not only just run the ball to control the clock, those drives where you're controlling the clock, you're getting touchdowns, not field goals. You're getting touchdowns and keeping Mahomes on the sideline. And then when Mahomes comes off the sideline and plays offense, if you can do what I just talked about, force turnovers. And when you force those turnovers and get those into touchdowns, it's the only way I can see them beating the Chiefs. Because other than that, if you look at the Chiefs attack for the against Houston, Houston's offense revolves around Deshaun. I would kind of try to take that same approach that the Bills did last week. Get after him, force sacks, maybe force some turnovers. But instead of doing what the Bills did and only settle for field goals, just get touchdowns. And then you just got a big lead in the first half. And you don't have to worry about some miraculous comeback like the Texans had to pull off last week. I mean, their Texans defenses, they're 19th in opponent scoring, 25th in allowing rushing yards, and 29th in passing defense. As long as Kansas City doesn't turn the ball over, I expect them to pick that defense apart all afternoon. I really do. Andy Reid has an outstanding record when he comes off a bye week. It's very rare you see an Andy Reid team lose after a bye week. Personally, I kind of think Texas got lucky last week with that win. It took, like I said, a lot for them to come back and take it to overtime and get the win. I think Kansas City walks all over them. I really do. I just don't see how like I said, the only way I can see Houston winning this game, or at least keeping this game close, is they force turnovers off the Kansas City offense, they control the clock, and when they have that ball, they score touchdowns. They don't take field goals, they don't punt the ball, they score touchdowns. I just don't see that happening. I think Kansas City walks all over them. I think they end up winning like a 34-21 type win. I really do. I think they blow them out of the water. I'm going to go ahead, though, and get into this last game of the divisional round weekend. We got the Seahawks traveling to Green Bay to face the Packers. Again, the injuries I'm going to go over, they're pretty long lists because we don't have the final injury report. You should know that by now. But as far as practice reports heading into today, it's Friday at 10:40 a.m. Eastern time. So just so you guys know what these games, these are the reports for the last 2 days. But as far as the Seahawks front, these following 4 players have not practiced. Dwayne Brown with a knee injury, Mike Iupati with a neck injury, George Fant with a groin injury, and Ziggy Ansah with a neck injury. Following players have been limited for the Seahawks: Jadeveon Clowney with a core injury, Joey Hunt with a fibula injury, Trey Flowers with a knee injury, Marquise Blair with an ankle injury, and Quentin Jefferson with an ankle injury. Now, looking at the Packers injury report, these 3 players have not practiced this week. Danny Vitale with a knee injury, Dexter Williams with an illness, Tyler Lancaster with an illness, and then these following 4 players have been limited this week. Kenny Clark with a back, Jimmy Graham with a wrist, Preston Smith with an ankle, and then Billy Turner with an ankle injury. Now, looking at the Seahawks offense and defense, Seahawks offense is ninth in scoring. They get 25.3 points per game. They have the fourth best rushing attack, getting 137.5 yards per game. But I will say this, obviously, with the injuries to Chris Carson and Rashawn Penny, it has not really been the same since Travis Homer and Marshawn Lynch have taken over, but they might be able to exploit the weaker rushing defense of the Packers, which I'll explain shortly. And their offense is 14th in the passing. They get 236.9 yards per game. Now, Seattle's defense, not that great. They're 22nd in opponent scoring. They allow 24.9 points per game. They have the 22nd best rushing defense. They allow 117.7 yards per game. And they have the 27th ranked passing defense, allowing 263.9 yards per game. Now, looking at the Packers offense and defense, Packers offense is literally middle of the pack, which is why people are kind of not that high on them, is because their offense has been so inconsistent throughout the year. They have the 14th ranked in scoring offense. They get 23.5 points per game. They rank 15th in the rushing attack. They get 112.2 yards per game. They have a 17th ranked passing attack, getting 233.3 yards per game. Now, their defense, they're ninth in opponent scoring. They only allow 19.6 points per game. They have the 23rd ranked rushing defense, getting 120.1 yards per game. And then they have the 14th ranked passing defense. They allow 232.6 yards per game. Now, looking how the Seahawks might want to attack the Packers, as far as their defense going on there against the offense, Packers, like I mentioned, they're pretty balanced as far as their offense, but they're not too explosive. Obviously, the best bet is not to let Aaron Rodgers have an Aaron Rodgers type game. They don't want to let Aaron Jones go off, because typically when Aaron Jones is going off, that's when those Packers are winning games. That's when they're blowing teams out, when they rely upon Aaron Jones. The Blitzalytics MVP metric, they actually gave credit to Aaron Jones. He's technically, if I remember that correctly, Jack Bourgeois could correct me on this, but he actually had the highest score in our MVP metric because of how much the Packers relied upon him this season. But if anybody's watched Packer games this year, or if anybody who was a fan of the fantasy football hot seat, they know, I listed him, I believe Rob did too, as a dud sometimes, and that wasn't his fault. It's just because for whatever reason, the game plan shifted away from Aaron Jones. So I think if the Seahawks can bottle up Aaron Jones, which is weird for me to say, I'm not trying to say bottle up Aaron Jones, let Aaron Rodgers beat you, because that's probably the last thing you want to do in the playoffs. I don't know. They're just going to have to hold and not let them score, because the Seahawks defense is bad. They're bad in the rushing. They're bad against the pass, and they let a lot of points score. So I guess the best bet that they can do for the Seahawks is they can play that bend but don't break defense, right? The Packers might march on you, but when it comes down to the red zone, don't let them find the end zone. That's probably their best bet. As far as them attacking the Packers defense, like I said, the Packers, they have the 23rd ranked rushing defense. They need a Travis Homer, and if they can get one of those classic beast mode games, this is a time where they really need them. If they can get that running game going, control the clock, keep Rodgers in the offense on the sideline, that's probably their best bet. But then again, let Russ cook that magic and let him pick apart the defense too. I think there needs to be a proper balance from the Seahawks in their attack. I think if they can rely on the run game early, let that set up the pass game to take those deep shots at DK Metcalf, let Tyler Lockett work the middle of the field, there's a way they can attack this offense. Now, looking at how Green Bay may want to attack the Seahawks as far as their offense, it's kind of weird, right? Because like I said, even though the Seahawks have the fourth best rushing attack, it hasn't really been the same with Travis Homer and Marshawn Lynch. But I don't know. I think they need to worry about Russell. I think they just need to make sure they have a quarterback spy on Russell Wilson. If you go back to the injury report when I went over, the Seahawks offensive line is banged up. So if Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith, the Smith and Smith brothers, if they can get after Russell Wilson, but bottle him up within the pocket and not let him extend plays outside the pocket, have a spy on him. So if he decides to take off and run, you got a guy that can go ahead and tackle him, or at least attempt to tackle him, because it is Russell Wilson now. I just don't let Russell Wilson beat you. That's at the end of the day, that's what you got to do. I mean, I would be more focused on Russell Wilson over stopping the run in this contest because, the injuries to the running backs of Seattle. So, just don't let Russell beat you. Bottle them up, keep them inside the pocket. Their line's banged up, and just try to get up as many sacks on him as you can. And then as far as the Packers offense, like I said, Seahawks, they're in the 20s in opponent scoring, rush defense, and pass defense. Have a proper balance. I was kind of talking about it earlier with how Seattle might want to attack the Packers offense. Feed Aaron Jones. Get that kid going early. And then when you get that kid going early, you can do the play action, hit Devontae Adams. You don't have to rely on Rodgers too much, but, let Rodgers be Rodgers. It's playoff time. Don't be afraid to let him sling it down the field every once in a while. I just think if you guys they get Aaron Jones not only in the running game, but in the screen game, out there in the out of the backfield, get Jamal Williams the ball too sporadically throughout the game. I think it's going to be the Green Bay running backs that can help them win this game over Aaron Rodgers' arm. But it might have to be Aaron Rodgers' arm in the fourth quarter that wins you the game, which I know he's been up and down this year, but he's still Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. We see him create magic just like Russell. We got two guys that have made some great playoff moments in the past. So as far as this game, it's hard for me to predict because I feel like the Packers should win this game because they're at home, but it's hard for me to go against Russell. But the Seahawks, they have just won too many one-score games. They they only beat the banged up Eagles without Carson Wentz by a score last week. So I'm going to go with the Packers in this one. I think they will find a way to win at the end. I think they get the ball at the end. Rodgers works his magic, and he throws a game-winning touchdown. I say the Packers win a 24-20 type win over the Seahawks. So just to go over my winners, I got the Vikings in the upset over the Niners. I got the Ravens beating the Titans, the Chiefs beating the Texans, and then the Packers beating the Seahawks. That's my episode today, guys. Oh, yeah, I forgot because I wasn't scrolling down there. My bad, Rob. As you guys know, if you've been listening to my show, Rob, my producer that helps me put this together, he always has a question for me. And just so you guys know, I'll go ahead and bring it up. If you guys missed last week's episode, I will be at the Senior Bowl here in a couple week and a half, 2 weeks. So if you guys will be there, please reach out to me. Maybe if you see me, please come say hi. I'm a pretty personable guy, so it's pretty easy to talk football with me. But Rob's question is, and if you see me, I'll make Jack. If you see me and you say, hey, I watched Cody Talks NFL or Blitzalytics.com or the Blitz Breakdown, I will make Jack Bourgeois, our CEO, buy you a beer. Yeah, I'll make Jack put it on the company card. But thanks, Rob. That's from Rob, by the way, Jack, not me. But Rob's question though is about the Senior Bowl, and he asked me, what are a couple names you're looking forward to seeing at the Senior Bowl? I mean, obviously I'm a Colts fan, right? Jacoby kind of fell off at the end of the year. I'm not sure if he's our future quarterback. I do think he might be our opening day starter next year, but we might have to bring in a rookie quarterback. We're picking at 13. So I'm very actually interested in watching these quarterbacks up close. So like a Jordan Love, a Justin Herbert, who I'll admit, as of right now, I'm not the biggest Justin Herbert fan, but if I get out there, I see how he practices, I see how he mingles with the other players, I might convince myself that maybe Justin Herbert has what it takes. So a Justin Herbert, a Jordan Love, I got my fingers crossed that they do convince Joe Burrow to come play at the Senior Bowl. I'm hoping I can see him as well. But there are other guys like Zach Bond. I'm a big fan of him from the Wisconsin Badgers. I think he can be a legit stud on a defense as an edge rusher. at the next level. Christian Fulton, the cornerback from LSU. I love his game tape from last year. He's a stud cornerback, I think, that can be a true number one quarterback if he gets coached up right at the next level. Those are a few names, guys, I cannot wait to see. I'll guess you want to give credit to Jim Nagy, the Senior Bowl director. He has put together a hell of a roster. You could argue it's one of the best, if not the best, Senior Bowl rosters in years. So I cannot wait to check it out. It's my first time going to the Senior Bowl to represent Blitzalytics. You guys will see myself, Jack Bourgeois, my Roy Countryman. So if you see one of the three of us, please come say hi. We love to talk ball with other guys. And then other than that, guys, if you like what you heard today, please hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also subscribe to the Blitzalytics Podcast Network. We're on Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iTunes, iHeartRadio. I want to say there's like 5 or 6 other platforms you can find us on. Just search Blitzalytics Podcast Network, hit the subscribe button. The audio version of this is always on there. If you're listening to the audio version, you can always get the video version first on YouTube. It always hits our YouTube first, and then we will get it uploaded on the audio version at the same day. But we all know technology sometimes takes time to upload things. But yeah, if you guys like what you heard, leave a comment, like, review, subscribe. If you guys see me in Mobile, just come say hi. I'll be a couple weeks away. You guys will see me next week. I will have one more episode before the conference championship weekend. And then other than that, please at me, at Cody Talks NFL on Twitter. I'm on Instagram as well. Other than that, have a great weekend. Enjoy the divisional round games. See you next week. Blitz out.
Thank you for watching Cody Talks NFL, presented by Blitzalytics.com. As always, hit that like and subscribe button, and then hit that bell notification icon to stay up to date on all things football.